Hey there, it's Dusty with yet another story from Reddit for you. This one is from AITA and is titled, Am I the Astronaut for Giving My Boyfriend the Silent Treatment for Being Late to Pick Up My Mom and I from the Airport? Cast your vote based on title alone here, please. Here's what happened. My mom and I were due to fly into the airport at 10:15 p.m. Note that we already had a prior scuffle because I was upset at him for not offering to pick us up. Okay, that's important context. He had asked over FaceTime if we had a ride, and I said I wasn't sure if our family friend was available. After I said all of that, he was silent over FaceTime because he was too busy making plans with his friend. When he finally came back to the call, I was completely silent because I was upset, and the call ended after I was unresponsive. Afterwards, he apologized for not offering directly to drive us from the airport. The next day, I confirmed that he could drive and sent all of the proper information and mentioned he should arrive 15 minutes later as we had checked luggage. On the actual day, the plane lands slightly early and I text him our progress. We've landed early, we're at customs, we've picked up our luggage. I hear crickets. Note that he normally responds to texts incredibly quickly. I still don't know if he remembered to pick us up and had us penciled in at all because he had not texted me that day about the flight while we were still in the air. This was a long international flight, so I had not spoken to him for close to 15 hours. That sounds like not fun. To be stuck in a seat for 15 hours? Nope. I resort to calling him, but I'm met with voicemail. I call him again, still no response. He finally responds 40 minutes after my initial text. He had been chatting with his friend after dinner, which took place 2 hours ago. He finally picks us up a full hour after the plane landed. I had gotten progressively more upset as time had passed, so I gave him the silent treatment. My mom chats with him from the back seat, but he isn't very responsive and doesn't really try to strike up conversation with me. He makes sure we get all of our bags and leaves with this bitter feeling hanging in the air. What should I make of this situation? Am I the asshole? I can't help but feel that he should have resolved the situation better. Another thing I can't help but feel upset about was he also did not explain anything to my mother and was painfully silent. When she was making the effort to converse, he only gave her terse responses back. Note, we have been dating for 2 years at this point and have met each other's parents many times. Bro needs to communicate, but you know what? I think you guys were right with the ESH here. OP sucks too. OP sucks here too, because this is not a mature response to a thing. Now, I can tell you that I can only imagine the amount of no more remaining. Where's the jar? The to give jar. I'm sure it was completely empty by the end of a 15-hour international flight and having to deal with TSA and having to deal with luggage and going through all of the things. I'm sure they were mentally spent by that point anyway. And yeah, boyfriend brozoed here, right? He brozoed by not offering in the first place. He brozoed by on a FaceTime call getting distracted and making plans with his buddy instead. Brozoed a few times here, but the silent treatment doesn't accomplish anything. Doing it multiple times here. Did it at the end of the FaceTime call because you were annoyed, OP. You did it in the car because you were annoyed here. You're upset at him because he didn't communicate better, and your response to that is to react by not communicating better. I think this is one of those give what you get or get what you give kind of situations. You want him to communicate better with you, and you're upset that he didn't. So your response was to communicate worse than he did in the first place, to intentionally give him the silent treatment. I understand that you're upset. You have a right to be upset here, but look, do you want to be right or do you want the situation to improve? I think that's the decision you have to make here. You have to make a decision on if you value being right more than you value the situation actually improving over time. If you want to solve this problem, you have to talk about it and be like, hey, instead of giving him the silent treatment on that FaceTime call when the silent treatment is what ended the call, there was no resolution there at all, being like, hey, what's going on? Because I'm feeling right now like you don't care. You just got distracted while we're in the middle of a FaceTime call and I'm trying to get things aligned with you, and also not offering to pick us up from the airport. Like I feel neglected by these things. I feel like you could care less. I feel like your actions made me feel that way. Is that an accurate representation? Do you realize that you're doing that? Or are you just overly distracted? Like, let's talk about that. letting your partner know that something they're doing is causing a reaction inside of you is like the early warning detection system, right? It is the early detection warning system. I don't know how that goes. It is the first opportunity that some people have to be able to fix a problem. I've been in situations before where things I have done have created negative feelings with Candy Thunder, and I had no idea until she brought it up to me. The silent treatment would not alert me to that. And yes, sometimes we dudes are pretty dumb and you have to spell things out for us. It happens. But if you want something to be actually fixed, talk about it. Talk it through. Come up with a solution together. Implement that solution to prevent this from happening in the future. Basic problem solving here. Hatter dropping the 10 bomb said, when my flight to Texas was delayed by a day, I called Mr. Hatter if he wanted to pick me up or me take a lift home from the airport. If you cannot communicate your feelings, this will be a nonstop issue. 100%. And thank you for the super, by the way. It is strictly a matter of, do you want to be vindicated or do you want to not have this problem again? Personally, I'd like to not have the problem again. And it is tough to communicate about these kind of things. They've been dating for 2 years, and at this point, they might not have entered that communication blitz. And Candy Thunder and I finally determined that it's not year one of marriage where that communication gauntlet happens. It's year one of living together, where you're forced to have those awkward conversations and problem solve more than you ever have before. This is one of the things that I feel like happens during that year one of the communication gauntlet. And maybe this is the first big thing that they've run into. But this is where you guys are going to learn to fight. You're going to learn to problem solve as a team, not as individuals who are butthurt at each other, but as a team. So ESH for me. Amber, yes. Oh, you're not communicating with me? Fine. I'm not going to communicate with you harder. Take that. Take that. Was he late or was she early? It was a combination, Paula. So I think he did show up. He probably did show up maybe 30 minutes later than he was supposed to be there. But she also told him that they landed early. So I've trimmed like 15 minutes off of there because the early landing, earlier than anticipated, I think was 15 minutes. We landed early. We're at customs. Plane lands slightly early. I'm like, he can't control that. I mean, he can track it. Flight tracker app, just saying, Ms. HH, I was just thinking the same thing. I'm like, flight track that. You're going to know the anticipated landing time and be there.